Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar. I am your host, as always, although just looking at the screen, I look a wee bit more like Princess Leia after a rough night tonight. Joining me to discuss all the latest Rangers news is, first of all, the splendid Mr. Adam Thornton.
Hello, David. How are you?
I am good, my friend. Good to have you on board ahead of your trip, possibly, given what we found out today about air traffic control to Amsterdam this week.
Yes, absolutely. Fingers crossed we get there. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, fingers crossed, all being well. Myself and Martin will be jetting off tomorrow, so yeah, all good. Hopefully,
I have no doubts you'll find a way there, regardless, and the same goes for many Bears out there at the moment. Joining us as well is David Marshall. Good evening, David.
How you doing, guys? A pleasure to be here. I've always find this a bit weird when we're doing video ones. I said I just feel like I end up having a staring contest myself. So if I feel like I'm staring deep into your soul out there, just know that I am.
Yeah, well, we do. That's your profession, really, has taught you how to do that. Huge week, Adam, for us, for the club, for the manager. Started off with one of these fixtures that can sometimes get a little bit maybe forgotten about or overlooked, certainly by fans, because you've got the PSV games, you've got the Celtic game coming up, sandwiched in between. It's an awkward trip, I think, to Dingwall, where our form has been patchy. A draw up there, a 4-2 that, the game was wilder than we would have wanted. And given what happened on the opening day of the season against Kilmarnock, we simply couldn't afford to drop points in this particular match. So we couldn't look too far ahead. The manager couldn't look too far ahead in terms of selection. Pretty solid victory, and I suppose the man we're all talking about is Kemar Roofe.
Absolutely. I think you're right. I don't think we've been beat off Rouse County, but there have certainly been a few dicey ones, and like you said, we always seem to concede quite a few goals against them. So, yeah, no danger of us overlooking that one, thankfully, and maybe focusing on a bigger week ahead. But yeah, I think getting in there, getting it done. I'm going to come on to my high horse in terms of shots and quality and chances that we really need to be burying at some point in the show. But in terms of the context of this week, I think getting a pretty standard, pretty cushy 2-0 where we really only turned up for 20-25 minutes and got the job done. I'll take every day of the week just now. And yeah, Kemar Roofe, it is frustrating. It really is. I'm a massive fan of Kemar Roofe, and I have been ever since he signed. I just think that guile and that ability that he has just in the box, you can't even really teach it. It's just he just gravitates to where the ball is going to be, and I find it remarkable. You look at players like Alfredo Morelos, Ryan Kent, some of those players who have delivered for us in the past, and the amount of time that they maybe need to get up to speed in a game. Even after maybe missing one game or even get up to speed in every game, Kemar Roofe is out for a year sometimes and comes back and just gets right on it and gets a goal. He's obviously quite used to that, and he's never been match fit in his life, I think, is basically the upshot of that. But just that ability he has to just turn it on is something that we've been badly missing. So yeah, a little bit bittersweet.
Let me come to you then, just before I come to Dave on that, about Kemar Roofe at the weekend. It took 20 minutes, and I put in our group chat, just remind you what you're missing inside 20 minutes, because you mentioned his movement, Adam. I think that he takes defenders into places they don't want to go. His movement is superb. And when we're playing a packed defence, I don't think you can overstate the importance of that, of bringing people out from, if you like, a position of safety where they're comfortable. And that creates space for others to go into. And that finish, that is a natural goal scorer finish. That is not an easy one. It'll get overlooked, understandably, because we've had a goal of the season candidate immediately after it. But the difficulty in that, you're being wrestled by the centre half. So you've got to physically compete with that. You've then got to react, twist, and generate power, which he does all of it. It's absolutely superb.
I think you're absolutely spot on. It is. It's just we talked about this. We talk about this all the time. We talk about it with Ali McCoist, and people say, "Oh, right place, right time." It's lucky. It's not. It's just.
No.
It's
McCoist,
just this
Boyd. Yeah. No. It's not luck.
It's just this instinct that it's this instinct that, if we're being honest, Alfredo Morelos didn't have. He was very much a powerhouse and would batter his way through and score spectacular goals. But that sort of right place, right time, that innate ability, I'm not sure we ever really thought of that. It's something that I think we've been badly missing. Someone who can consistently finish poorer quality chances, I guess, if you want to put it like that. And as far as that one was, it wasn't the best cross into the box. They were giving each other a bit of back and forwards, but he's off balance certainly, and he's sort of leaning away. And it's just that I'm going to get anything on this that I can possibly get on it. It sort of took me back to remember that game everybody talks about, that sort of season defining one against Motherwell,
Yes,
during the 55 season where Roof got one, and I'm sure that was a bit sclaffy as well, and it was the decisive one that we managed to get in when we were all sort of worrying. It just seems to happen that he does nice stuff well in a kind of non-showy way. You mentioned the movement, etc. There, it's not going to be like Kent did or like Morelos did, where it's this movement that you think, oh my god, look what he's done. It's just this sort of coolness to make something happen. I think that's the same in the box. He just knows what he has to do to get it in the net, which I think is something that we've been missing.
And Dave, something we did at the weekend that I think is a huge thing for Rangers is capitalising on the faster start, and that's getting the second. Because in Scotland, teams don't change their game plan at 1-0. They go, right, okay, we'll hang in this game and we'll still do what we plan to do because we know we'll get an opportunity. At the weekend, that didn't happen. James Tavernier with just a sumptuous goal, an absolutely amazing strike. But one thing I liked about that goal in particular that was maybe overlooked slightly at the weekend was as soon as Tav, there was a turnover in the midfield, and as soon as Tav started driving, Rangers had 4 runners. And that meant that there were 4 Ross County defenders taken out because they had to stay with their man. That allowed the space for Tav. And don't get me wrong, he used it brilliantly. He drove into it, looked up, and a worldie. But again, it was the team reacting at the same time to something and go, oh, turnover, go. And I thought that in a weird way, as well as being a brilliant solo goal, it was also a decent team goal.
Yeah, it seemed that everything just clicked into place for the goal. I think everyone else around Tav knew when he picked up the ball where he did that it came clear quite quickly that he only had one intention, that was to drive forward. I think since he got that ball, he was like, I'm scoring here. As you say, the runners that make the movement takes the Ross County defence out of the game, gives Tav the space to run into. And it's a great goal to get and a great time to get as well. Comes quickly after the first one. And it's, I was having conversations with my mates after the game about this, that people were saying that we took the foot off the gas a wee bit in the second half, which we did in a way, but I don't mind that. See if we get the game won early, I'm quite happy with that. I think it's not unreasonable to say that we should have scored more goals in that game. I think we should have. But getting the game won early, being a child of Walter Smith, I'm happy enough with that. Get the game done in the first half. It's something that we have failed to do all too often, particularly in the last 2 years. So going 2-0 up in the space of 5-10 minutes in the first half, that puts your heads down. You're right what you say. 1-0 doesn't really do that because we've seen that story so many times over the last few years where we've went 1-0 up and stop. I'm not saying go 2-0 and stop, but 2-0 and take things a bit easier, I can live with. I would like us to see us pushing on more and getting these games where it does become 4s and 5s. I think that could have been the case at the weekend. In the second half, we still had chances. I'm going to go into Adam territory here. Still don't know if we're creating enough quality chances or taking the ones that we do. There is a part of me now, I was, even 7 to 10 days ago, David, I was getting a bit worried about that. I can see it starting to click now, so I'm getting less worried about it. But at this point, it's still a thing. We're not creating enough, not taking the chances that we do create. Look at the 2 goals we did score. They're both in different ways. Wonder goals worked out by the one player. So that is still somewhat of concern, but overall, very happy with what we got at the weekend.
Adam, I'm glad that we've got you on. First time this season we've had you on the flagship show, and I did want to ask you tactically, what is the plan for Rangers? Because we've seen it is slightly different to what we've witnessed before. We were used to the 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. It has been changed a little bit. We seem to be narrower. We seem to be operating at times a diamond midfield. And even in the second half, where, as the manager said, we switched to a 3 at the back at times, it became a 3-4-3 rather than a 3-5-2. What is the thinking behind this? What's it supposed to look like when it works?
So I think the thinking for me is to get as much attacking intent in the final third as we can. I think that's something that we probably lacked throughout Beale's last time here. Obviously, we had the 55 season where we did very, very well, but at times we were still very counter-attack and lost count of the amount of times that the fullbacks would hammer the ball into the box and there'd be one forward in there with no one else sort of coming up, because we sort of had that flatter midfield three who weren't going to do that. They were going to sit back and allow the fullbacks to go. I think what we're seeing now is a little bit of an adjustment there, and I think it's causing us some issues. To be honest, we are seeing the fullbacks be a little bit more exposed, but I think that's, whether it's the plan or not, I'm not sure, but it's only natural for me. If you replace the skill sets of Jack, Davis and Kamara with Raskin, Cifuentes and Cantwell, that's a completely different midfield. That's not a midfield that is going to be defensive and get behind the ball and make things tight for the opposition. That is a midfield that is going out to dominate and win and attack games. Arguably, none of them have that sort of defensive first aspect that I think we've seen too much of. So in a way, we've sort of flipped it.
Is it a risk-reward thing?
I think so. And I think that's the big thing. It is a risk-reward thing. We're probably relying on Suter and Goldson being the guys one-on-one. We're going to do it. This is what it is risk and reward. But I think we do see the benefits of it. The lack of width thing, I kind of understand. However, I think we're trying to, I guess, combat that by having Todd Cantwell, Cifuentes, Raskin, whoever it is, playing as those sort of wider number eights. The ball that Cifuentes put in for Danilo, for example, in the Servette game, he's wide. So they're playing as those sort of wider central midfielders, but they're sort of moving into those channels in a kind of logical way. They'll never just be standing out there pinging balls into the box, but they'll be sort of moving out there to try and create these overloads and rotations in the wider areas. So it's a little bit more nuanced for me than it was before, where we were just used to that pretty much bog standard, fullbacks hammering up, flatter midfield three, and then three forwards who would do stuff. There's a lot of different things happening. Some of it not good. I think in terms of the front three, I think whoever has played there, we've had some concerns. I'm sure we'll come on to what we think in terms of team lineups, etc. for the next couple of games. Hasn't been perfect. They have all scored. I think every forward so far now has a goal.
Yeah,
so
they have. Yeah.
That's a positive. I think a few could have more. I see some comments coming in about Dessers. I think he is the one that I am least concerned about, and people might be a little bit shocked about that. He is looking to me like he's getting better, fitter, stronger every single game.
No,
His movement, I think, is really, really good. His weight of pass, for example, the goal against Matondo's goal against PSV, that is a world class pass. I think that's a terrific pass for someone who, let's be honest, a couple of weeks earlier looked like he was towing a caravan. So I'm happy with the progression there. I'm also happy that he's getting into the positions. I've seen again a couple of comments that he missed 3 bad goals at the 3 bad chances.
He had 3. I mean, it was head like a 10-ball bit stuff at the weekend.
And it's difficult because you then want to say, well, at least he's getting into those positions, but there's only so long that flies. So I think
that's fair.
I think in terms of the tactics up front, we're still sort of working out what that 3 is doing from game to game. But certainly in the midfield, to me, seems like it is a much more aggressive, like you said, much more risk reward. We're probably going to see examples of us conceding shots from in front of the defence, maybe more than we had before. But I just think it's a balancing act, and we have to wait and see how it goes. Probably once we come back after this break. I think this block has just been, it is what it is. Let's get through it. Once we come back, I think all of these excuses or reasons or valid reasons about fitness and who this person
they're finished.
And someone getting in, I think that needs to go.
No, I agree. I think we're by that now. I think once, as you say, we get to the international break, that's it now. That the machine should be working. Dave, I want to highlight a couple of players, and I'm going to start with you. You were obviously the last kid picked at school and played as a goalkeeper, and we've all, I think, taken to Jack Butland rather well, because he's taken to what we needed rather well. And a bugbear of mine, and I'm really glad that it's Ross County because we can highlight this, was sometimes people would get on at our defenders, and I would understand why, because they'd be making errors. My point was that they were having to do a significant amount of defending they didn't need to do or shouldn't have to do. And of course, the more defending you have to do, the more chance there is you'll make a mistake. And I just felt that Saturday was an almost perfect example of that idea, which is Jack Butland just kept coming for things. So there was no attack. Now, I've been at Ross County, Adam, you've been up there as well, when the ball has been whizzing about our box and the defenders are running about, but having to head out from under their own bar, having to, get blocks and things in the 6-yard box, running the risk of the second ball falling to a Ross County player. We've seen that up there, and as Adam mentioned, we've conceded goals to them. Jack Butland reduces the amount of defending the defenders have to do. He reduces the amount of saves he has to make because he just comes and deals with it right at the source. And I know that some people say, he flapped at one late in the end. He'll flap at an occasional one, all goalkeepers do. But if he's taking 99% of them, happy bunny over here.
Yeah, I don't know how many times over the last 2 years, particularly myself and Adam went back and forward about, God, that was terrible defending. And I said, well, he's sitting the goal and he's 3 yards out. And okay, fair point. Yeah, it's just so reassuring. And as you say, as a goalkeeper myself, by the way, don't underplay the value of having a good goalkeeper to pick when you're playing, or even just a goalkeeper. To see him coming out, and just grabbing balls out there. I was saying to you guys when I was watching the game at the weekend, I could just watch him come for crosses all day. It's just so good to watch. It just leaves you feeling so much more confident in your back line. I'm sure the guys playing in front of Butland have got a lot more confidence than they did last season. He's just so assured, and he flapped at that one towards the end. He made a wee bit of a mess of the Morton goal. Of the Morton throw-in the week before as well. But as you said, if you're coming out from, you're taking 99% of them, then yeah, you should be expecting your defence to bail you out the one time you need them.
Yeah,
and they've done so far, rather than every single cross comes into the box is an issue, which is what we had the last 2 years with McGregor winning. That was never his strong point anyway, but it was particularly highlighted in the last couple of years. Yeah, I love seeing it. I'm very much on the Jack Butland train. I think he's been a brilliant signing. I think over the course of the season, we could look back and saying that Butland's been our most important signing we've made.
Adam?
I completely agree, and I think you hit the nail on the head, David. It's that sort of proactive rather than reactive thing. Alan McGregor, an absolutely wonderful shot stopper. And I guess when you think about it logically, if you want to play to your strengths as a goalkeeper, then you play to your strengths, and you think, I'm a great shot stopper. I back myself against 99% of people. If they get a header, I'm going to save it on my line. So it's just a different way of playing. For me, I think I liken it to. Remember when we had all the debates about why are we passing out for the back, or why we kick it, why don't we kick it long anymore? And there was not even a study. Someone on Twitter was saying, well, if you think about it logically, if you kick the ball out long, a defender is facing the way that the ball is kicking, and the strikers are facing away. Defenders are probably more often than not going to be taller than strikers. So if you're kicking a high ball at them, then less than 50% of the time you're going to lose possession. If you pass a ball out to a centre back, 99 times out of 100, you're going to retain possession. The one time that you don't, you probably lose a goal.
Yeah.
I think that's the same as we're seeing here. Yes, Butland came out in the last 2 league games and got nowhere near for one cross in each game. But it's all the little ones that one at the weekend there is a highlight reel one, because he comes right out to the edge of the box. He's done it 5 times and no one, not that no one bothers, but you just sort of, it comes to a point where you just kind of gloss over it. If something doesn't happen, you just think, right, that's that out of the way and it's great. We need to take a step back and say, that was really good. He came out and got that. It might have just been for anybody watching who has a keeper that does that, it might just have been pretty bog standard. Doesn't matter for us. We're used to that pinball in the box. So I think it's great. And this comment, David, I think is key as well. The goalkeeper needs to be about more than just what he does on the park in terms of his attributes, etc. The way that he speaks, that first interview, I was nervous, I have to admit, of him coming in, just because I couldn't go and watch anything. There was nothing I could look at. There was no data, because he hadn't really done anything for a few years, and you never know. So he was one that I was coming in pretty blind about. Then he started speaking on that RTV interview, and just right away I was like, okay, he can actually speak. Like, we've had years of players dodging interviews or just going through the motions, etc. He looked like he genuinely wanted to be here and enjoyed speaking and spoke well, and he's kept it up ever since. So I do think that part of it, particularly for a goalkeeper, I think is something that's huge for us.
I think at some clubs there are some positions that are huge, and for Rangers I think you need a commanding presence goalkeeper, somebody who
because we've been
fills-
spoiled and we expect it.
because we've been spoiled and we expect it. We have a lineage that runs Woods, Kloss, Gorham, Kloss, McGregor. Now, I'll put that against pretty much any four in world football over the last 40 years. But you need someone who as I say, is strong and confident. This is my box. This is, I command this area. And he does that. He's a big guy. He has a physical presence, if you like. But I just go back to Dave's point about defenders then will start to feel that sense of security that they haven't had for a while, because they've known that there'll be things they have to deal with that they maybe don't want to be dealing with. Defenders don't want to be heading away crosses from right under the bar that they don't need to be. And I just love the way that he kept coming and dealing with stuff. The other player at the weekend, although I do want to give a shout out to John Suter, who was excellent, but the other player I thought was excellent, Dave, was Borna Barisic. And normally that indicates that he's been very, very good going forward, but I thought he was terrific defensively. I thought that not only did he lock down his side of the defence, a couple of times he came over and mopped up, and that's not really been his strongest suit in the past. But the manager spoke after it about having his two fullbacks and having them being pushed by two young fullbacks in Sterling and Ridvan. It does seem that Bonner is responding to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's playing well now. I'd certainly say he's going through a bit of a purple patch. I thought he played well at the weekend as well. I'm not trying to discredit any of that, but I'd still say the fullback area, particularly on Bonner's side, is still a bit of a worry to me.
Yeah.
I'd still be looking regardless to try and, if not this year, because I don't think it's going to happen now, certainly going into next season, looking more long term of getting a replacement in that left back area, if that's going to be Ridvan or someone else. Because as well as Bonner is playing well now, that's not to say in a month again that he goes back to what we're used to, because he does go through these spells, and when he has a bad spell, it can be really bad. So I just don't think he's consistent enough for us to hang a hat on him. He's doing well now. I'm not taking anything away from him, but looking more long term, I would be looking to get something else in there at that left back position.
Adam, we got a boost on Saturday. I don't really want to talk too much about the opposition, but they are the opposition, and I think we all recognise that. And I do think that some of the reaction, and I include myself in this, by the way, so I'm not criticising anybody, but to the Kilmarnock match was that Celtic had such a good season last season, over 100 points, won the treble, had our measure, unfortunately, in most of the games, that there was a sense of we cannot drop anything whatsoever because they'll be as good as they were, if not better. And I think there's maybe been a realisation the past month with, they've got their problems as well. Now, you can't rely on that. You need to do your own business. But it does just give a wee bit of encouragement to not only the support, but the players as well of, lads, if we do our jobs, then the opportunity is opening up. And while they brought in a very high caliber manager, etc., high profile manager, they did lose somebody who I think, now that he's away, we can admit was probably pretty good at what he did for a living. But it just, it just boosts us, I think, when you see those results and you think, because you can't be dropping points on St Johnstone. They've been piss poor this season, St Johnstone. And I remember a couple of years ago, Rangers drew 3 each, conceded a last-minute goal.
Yep.
In the early kick-off to Ross County under Gio. And then Celtic scored a last-minute winner at home to Dundee United. And it sort of set the tone. And I just felt that on Saturday, I said, bit different, because I don't think there was a man in Europe didn't think they would find a way to pick up the 3 points. So it's just a wee boost. It means nothing if we don't take care of our own business. But just a reminder that, look, we're up against a good side. We're not up against Real Madrid.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And yeah, I think they're looking a little bit disjointed. Injury issues. Absolutely. Still nowhere near a patch on our injury issues from last year, we have to say. But
there's been wars that have gone by that didn't have as many injuries and casualties as we had last year.
And you never want to be but if we never got injuries, or we never got this, we never got that. But when you look at the fact that we had Sands and Lundstrom or Sands and Leon King at various points last year, then it can't not have an impact on you. I think so. But this time round, let's hope that's similar, where they've got two young centre halves who don't have much experience playing for Celtic, coming into a very big game. There's two sides to that. Then I think there's obviously that nervousness that they're going to have, but then the fact that we need to go out for the kill and out for the throat and say, like, we understand those weaknesses. This is what we're going to go for. But I think you're right. I think every great champion or every great championship, it's very unlikely for it to happen again. So if you're aiming for a treble every year, you'll get it sometimes, depending on the caliber of Rangers team you're playing. But you might not. It's not realistic for you to go through seasons in a way that they did last season. That's an absolute freak for me. And every single challenging team needs a drop off from the champion. We've seen it in England when Liverpool won. Liverpool won during COVID. Man City were not great. Other teams were not great. Even back when Leicester won, it was supposed to be.
Yeah. It should have been Tottenham. It was Tottenham or Leicester, for crying out loud, that should have won that title.
It just always, there has to be a drop off, I think, and that's what the great teams do. They don't let you have that drop off, but it always has to happen. And now, we're looking at it. We've spoken before how I think personally in modern football, 2, maybe 3 seasons is par. It is great for a manager, for a team, and then you need to do something that very, very few can do. Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, Walter Smith is this evolution of a team and getting another set of players to come in and win again. It's not a very easy thing to do, and I think you see everywhere teams have great 2-year windows and recruitment is fantastic, and then either they double down on their ideals and they get lazy, or they try and pull a rabbit out the hat so many times and it doesn't quite happen, and then I'm not really quite sure
what to... Go back to the same thing because it worked before, so the logic, and it's a fallacy, but the logic is it worked then, it must work now.
You also get to that position as well where players are 2 years into 4-year contracts and they're maybe getting to an age where they're 26, 27 and you want to keep them because they're great players, but you're then doubling down and you're giving them massive pay increases for 4 or 5 years that are going to take them up to 33 years old, and you'll be lumbered with them and they end up falling off a cliff as they get to 30. All these things are just really, really difficult to maintain on top of trying to be relentless and winning all these games. We've seen that, I think, at that point that we win the league. We were at that stage where we sort of need to sell players now or bring players in or make big boy decisions, and we didn't really. We just sort of let it slip.
No, we didn't.
And we sort of put it in the post, if you like. We sort of kept pushing it 6 months and 6 months and 6 months, and you need to be relentless with it, and you need to be quite decisive with what you're doing. So that's not to say all of that's happening across the city, but certainly the signs are the signs that it may not be like last year, and certainly the signs from the fans that I allow myself to see on Twitter is certainly that they're not as happy as they could have been. I think right now is safe to say.
Dave, I think then in terms of the games that we played, an interesting thing I want to talk about is that Rangers didn't have the weekend off. PSV did. Michael Beale said that was a good thing. Rangers have had qualifiers. Celtic obviously haven't, which means we've played more games than them going into the Old Firm match at the weekend. In my opinion, this team needed those games. I don't think it was a bad thing. I would rather we played at the weekend. The manager said that. He said maybe in the future we might, look at, or should Scottish football as a whole look at it. I'm of the opinion that I think if a team has a European qualifier in Scotland, you can't do it for every round, but I think for a playoff round, any team in Scotland, be it us, Aberdeen, Hearts, I think if we request, any of those clubs request, dare I say even that lot, request a weekend off before a big one, I would say yes, I would allow that. But I think we needed the game at the weekend. I think we needed to play. And I think in terms of normally, maybe if it'd been a different year and we'd a settled team, then you'd be going, we've had 9 games, Celtic only had 5. But right now I'm thinking those 4 games are beneficial when you're trying to find an identity.
Yeah, I would agree with that because, we've still got a new team coming in here that's trying to gel. All these players are playing with each other for the first time. I think we're at the point now we are seeing focus. Like I think you guys made a good point at the start of the show talking about we're getting to the point now where the fitness excuses no longer applicable. Yes. We are starting to see things click. I mean, the Dessers to Matundo goal is a great example of that. I think the games would help us. there is a part of me because, you know, we are playing Celtic after we're playing this big European qualifier, and that has happened to us quite a lot over the last 5 years. I mean, that's our fault for not winning the league, let's be honest about it.
Correct.
I would, you know, as a part of me, say I would rather play anyone else but them with this big game come before. But there's a part of me that has to agree with you. I think it does help, because I don't think our players will be approaching these two games going, "Oh, it's a shame we've got these two games one after another." I think they're going to be up for it. I think I'm not seeing any sign of any tiredness coming into the team. I think managers done quite a good job as well in the games we have had. They've rotated the team where it's needed, like at the Morton game, there was a good amount of changes there. And some places where there wasn't changes, like we talked about at the time, Butland starting the Morton game, I thought that was a good idea, because you're trying to get him used to playing.
Like a goalie, yeah, I agree.
Try and get him into the team. So I think Bill's done quite well with that so far. I've got no fears over, you know, the impact of the PSV game running into the Celtic game. It's not like in Gerrard's first season where we had to go and play Ufa in deepest, darkest Russia, then come back and play Celtic 3 days later. We're going to Holland, we'll be back home a couple of hours after the game's finished.
And it's a home fixture at the weekend.
Yeah, and we're playing at Ibrox as well, so...
No, I'm quite happy with the way it's panned out. Adam, air traffic control allowed. You will be in Amsterdam this week. Unfortunately, I can't make it due to personal reasons this time, which obviously gutting, but you need to do what you do. We will have 3 more trips to look forward to, regardless of Champions League and Europa League. And we spoke last week about, you know, this thing of what would you rather. The way I look at it is there's no rather. I want to get into the Champions League. I want to beat PSV. If we don't, the Europa League is a very nice fallback. It's, you know, to make sure that the financial impact isn't as big as it could have been. We've got more games, something to look forward to, the European competition bringing spice. Last year, of course, we go over there and we win 1-0. With, as you mentioned, I would argue a team, you know, the centre-back pairing, for example. PSV are right up for this. They're very confident, as we've heard in the media, that they really, really fancy themselves. But I think we're capable of doing this. I know we're not favourites, and I can understand that. PSV are an excellent side. Pound for pound, they've spent a hell of a lot more than us. But I think if we go, we're disciplined, and most importantly for me, that we don't panic if there is a setback. If we do concede a goal, we stick to what we plan to do. I think there's joy for us potentially, because I do rate them very highly middle to front, but I wasn't particularly impressed with them at the back.
No, 100%. I think the pressure is all on them. I think that's why we're seeing all these noises coming out. I read a tweet on Twitter, funnily enough, or X, whatever we're calling it now.
X, apparently,
which has said, what was it? Less Joey Veerman, more Joey Tierman, which I've really enjoyed because he has been bubbling every single time.
See, for somebody that wouldn't leave Holland because he got homesick, yeah, he's got a lot of say for himself.
He's a great player. I would have loved him to be here, but this meltdown is quite amusing, I have to say. And I think there's a couple of them that are at it now in the media. It's all on them. I'm delighted we're in a position where we've got a free hit. I think it's more important. It's more important on a kind of playing side, I think, for PSV to go through, because they never got through last season, and the Europa League was not great for them in terms of where they are as well. Obviously, it's important for us financially as well, but having that backup, I feel like for us, that will still hopefully not have a material impact on our finances by just going in there, I think is really fantastic. So I think just going out there and making it a free hit, like you said, if we go a goal down, just getting on with it, really, and just treating it as a 0-0 and trying to go out there and win the game again. I think it's key, and I think I'm really interested to see how we set up. I had a bit of a conversation about it on Twitter with a few people earlier on today, and there's a few different things that we can do. I'm sure we'll come on to it, but I'm really interested in seeing what we do, because we know sometimes in the second leg of these games we are a lot better. Maybe mostly under Van Bronckhorst in terms of figuring the team out and seeing their strengths and weaknesses, etc. But I'm sure Michael Beale and his team will be the same. We've seen them at Ibrox. We've seen exactly what they've got. I don't think they necessarily can play significantly better than that. Touch wood, certainly in terms of how they play. They're not going to be any quicker.
Certainly again, middle to front, I don't think they can.
They're not going to be any quicker. They're not going to attack in any different ways. So we've almost sort of seen it all there. And like you said, I'm not sure about the injuries. I know Ramalho trained this week, so I'm assuming he will be back. Not sure about the other centre half that went off, but there was opportunities there anyway, regardless of who plays. And I think our forward line will be key. I think there are any opportunities that become available. We need to put them away. So I'm a little bit frustrated, I guess, that Kemar Roof maybe wasn't a couple of weeks further on in terms of his fitness to try and get him into this game at some point. But as we've said, we spent a lot of money on these forwards, and if one of them wants to pop up with the goods on Wednesday night, then that would be very welcome.
I don't think exactly, and I don't think he could play Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday. So I'm quite happy to have him champing at the bit this Sunday for that particular game, to be honest. And as you say, we've spent a lot of money on these forwards. This is what they all come here and they say, I want to play Champions League. That's why I've come here. Right, cool. Here's your opportunity. And Dave, I think that for me, the kind of key aspects on Wednesday night will be concentration. If you switch off, you'll get punished. Discipline, because it's a hostile environment. And ruthlessness. If we get chances, they have to go in, because we cannot afford to spurn golden opportunities. Get those three right, and we'll go through.
Yeah, if we lose that goal from a corner again, I think I'm going to put my foot through the telly. I'm quite confident going into Wednesday night, to be honest. I just think we've, and this is going to go against Adam's logic and tactics and everything he likes to lecture about, but I just think we've got the number, to be honest. I think with the comments that we're seeing coming out from over there, I think they're panicked. To be honest, I think they'll be quite nervy on Wednesday night. You know, they talk about what a poor side we are. That's 3 times we've played us in the last year, and they haven't beat us. So I mean, we can't be that bad. Or I don't know what that says about them. I think, like you said, Davey, I think middle to front they're a good team. They pass the ball well.
They do.
I'm not sure how far off their optimum that we seen last week. I don't know how much better they can be than that. Going from middle to front and at the back, they are absolutely there to be got with. And you know, if we press their defence like we have done against them so far, with them already being nervy, with the crowd starting to get nervy over there, getting on their back, I wouldn't be surprised again if to see us nick a goal like that. I think Wednesday night will take care of itself. I'm suppose not quietly since I'm saying it here, but I'm confident going in there. I think we'll be just fine. I think all the pressure's on them. The Europa League is a good consolation for us. I want to see us in the Champions League, but yeah, I think it's not that they want it more, but I think they'll be seeing it as more important to them, and I think it's just going to get to them, to be honest.
I think it's a case of with the Europa League, we're going for a tenner. If we don't get it, we've got a fiver rather than nothing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that. But yeah, you're right. You're not quietly confident. You're audibly confident. It's probably the best way to describe that.
Audibly and visually tonight.
Exactly. The whole host. Looking at 3 of us, I've no idea why people do hassle us and say you should do a live podcast. But hey, you know, I'm not here to kink you. Oh, I fucking rub it in, you prick.
Right.
You fucking wank. Right, it'll happen to you. Right. I used to think I was with it, Dave, and then they changed what it was, and now what it is scary to me.
Well,
and it'll happen to you. Yeah,
I'm going to rock on forever. Ever.
And party every day. Right, that will almost do us for tonight. Just to tell you, we're playing New Edmiston House on December the 1st. We did a show there earlier this year, and we're going back on December the 1st. We've almost sold it out, I'm delighted to say, but we still have a few tickets left, and we'd like to sell it out for, you know, our egos, basically. So if you'd like to come along, please go and get your kits available at the Edmiston House website, and you can come and see us. It's going to be a great night. We're really looking forward to it, and please come and join us. Kick your December off, and if things continue to go the way that we hope they do, then we'll all be in a very good mood for it. You can, of course, subscribe on Patreon to hear more from all of us. Adam does his tactics show. Dave is, I think you've got 3 shows on the network. Myself, plenty of stuff there, and I guarantee you'll like something on it. You get a week to make your mind up as well. It's free for the first week. Just go to patreon.com/heart and hand. I'd like to thank our executive producer in London, Mike Lee, Paul Miles, and of course my 2 wonderful guests tonight. First of all, the splendid Mr. David Marshall.
Thank you, mate. Can I give a shout out to my mate John, who, while we're recording, sent me Photoshop pictures of myself with a Hitler moustache and a cock in my mouth. So cheers for that, mate. Much appreciated.
They're not Photoshopped, are they?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Hitler moustache would be a problem. The other thing, no, that's what he does in the privacy of his own living room is all right by me.
Not while live streaming, though. To be fair,
No, don't do it when we're live streaming. No, that could be a bit. It could put people off. And of course, the splendid Mr. Adam Thornton. Adam, I hope you get away okay, and I hope you have a fabulous trip home in a very good mood.
Cheers, David. And if anybody wants to buy my pet crocodile, let us know in the comments.
Thank you for listening, folks. We'll do this again at some point throughout the season, I dare say. But until then, here's to 2 Rangers victories, hopefully this week. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.